city of brotherly love. Once the nation's capital. Hosted the Second Continental Congress, which adopted the Declaration of Independence. Deep roots in the New World. Let's look at Philadelphia. It's a very large city and a very early time period for North America. You can see here the population demographics. 1.2 million in 1900. Modern day, 1.5. Not a large difference. Peaking in the 50s and 60s. And you can see going all the way back into the 1700s. So really a massive metropolis of the old world. And we're going to see that in the architecture here as we take a closer look. And I have a rather large file for you here. I tried to fit in as much as I could. And you're going to see some interesting buildings that have really been forgotten to time. This is 1876 World's Fair. These are buildings that once existed in Philadelphia. We'll see more of those as we move forward. Of course, we know the Pilgrims landed from Europe, and that's what kicked off the this time period, supposedly, on the continent, which I think this is a complete fiction, just like the Christopher Columbus story we're fed, as well as stuff like this, which we start to see in this research. General Ulysses S. Grant, that's his log cabin in Philadelphia. I don't know why they couldn't give up one of these multi-storied, ornately decorated buildings for this gentleman, but apparently not. Maybe they're telling us it didn't exist at the time, but you're going to see a city that looks like it's been around for quite some time. Even in this shot, you can tell. In the age of horse and buggy, you can see all the infrastructure, how old it really appears to be. And a really overwhelmingly beautiful city, Philadelphia. No shortage of any sort of splendor with the architecture. And of course, I don't know what still remains. Some of you out there may have been there and know a lot more, of course, about this location than I do. I'm just bringing in visuals and some of my ideas. This is an interesting street, basically made for the streetcar, almost looking like. Everything very close together. And a little bit more room here, and early automobile. And you can see the sort of the hideous signs that get put on these old world structures. Certainly not made to have some sort of basic sign put up front to let you know what they're trying to sell or what kind of service you can get in that location. And almost every building you look at has some sort of detail like this. So you really have to ask the question, despite the high population for this city, I don't think there's any real logic in the way that they built these. And I certainly can't build like this and don't build like this today. I find it very telling when we get these photographs of the horses and buggies. And then you get the buildings in the background, and we're supposed to sort of believe that these were the modes of transportation of a people that built in such a manner. To me, there's no logic in that. Everything in the old world seemed to have been founded. Right? Why do they use that wording? Founded. Here's a bird's eye supposedly from 1872. And even at that time period, we're told that the population demographics are up over 600,000. And you can see they have no qualms about showing us the development and what really was standing at that period of time. Fits the narrative, right? This doesn't. This is one of the World's Fair buildings. Like, is the mechanical hall. This is from the 1870s. Really? So just because population is large, we're supposed to believe that they're able to accomplish anything. Never mind the technology available to them at the time, according to our historical narrative. And no shortage of buildings like this that have some sort of interesting detail, very difficult to add to a building architecturally, and then of course physically to try to do the work. Here we have a stereoscopic view of the Masonic hall. Apparently these, if you look at them in a certain way, they become 3D. It's sort of like one of those remember those old 3D puzzles where you could sort of put your eyes out of focus and you could bring that into a 3D image. Try it if you want. The Academy of Music. There's the inside of that. Just to give you a bit of a taste. Having that, what we would consider to be European flair. This is a drawing of the Agricultural Hall from that Centennial Exposition, 1876. Apparently they had the time and resources to put these cymatic windows in and the little turrets. So this exposition that ran for 6 months, apparently they built more than 200 buildings for it and was surrounded by a fence nearly 3 miles long for a 6-month exposition. They held a design competition, and then after the 10 winners were chosen, it was determined that none of them were allowed enough time for construction, and they had limited finances. We get to the main exhibition building down here, and they tell us that it was a temporary structure, largest building in the world by area though, and it took them 18 months to complete at a cost of this. Consisting of prefabricated parts with wood and iron frame resting on a substructure of stone piers. Wrought iron roof trusses were supported by the columns of the superstructure. It doesn't sound too temporary to me. They don't look temporary either. And the story of the World's Fairs, Chicago, St. Louis, Omaha, Buffalo, Philadelphia, San Francisco. If you're new to this area of research, you need to start with the World's Fairs, really to understand what was going on, I think. Much more to that story, but that's for another video. The Aldine Hotel, I'm not sure if it's this one or this one. We have the Life Insurance Castle, the American Life Insurance Castle. What's this? Wow. That looks like some sort of statue. Very interesting looking building. The Arcade Building. You'll see this a little bit later. See the interior of this. You can see the bridge. The elevated bridge. Very out of place for what we'd consider to be late 1800s. There's the arcade again, apparently. Looking wider and different. You see that anomaly as well in some photos as we move forward. 2 different shapes for the same building. The Bartram, assuming it's a hotel. Looks like a fun place to have a drink and a bite to eat, maybe some music and some dancing up top. The Bellevue Stratford still stands, I believe. They're saying that this took 2 years to build in 1902 and 1904. If you're buying it, guys, you're putting a lot of faith in the people of the past. A lot of faith. You can see here this goes downstairs. What are they building structures like this in 1902 for and have basement access? All of these down here. Come on. Can you smell it? This is an incredible structure. Why is so much of the ornate detail near the top of the building? Is it just for bravado? I suggest not. These chimneys, why are these shaped in such a manner? You see this a lot too, with the covering, right? A lot of questions need answering. Also the Bellevue Stratford, we're told. An earlier version, they'll tell us you get this a lot as well. If they apply two names to, or one name to two structures, then we can make the assumption that they did build something like this after the previous one was torn down, reaffirming the narrative, of course, by way of deception. Okay, the Benjamin Franklin Hotel. You see these type of hotel structures all over America. Very interesting the way that this is constructed. Not looking like much from afar, but when you get in a little closer, look at some of the interior, you begin to realize the quality of construction and that was going on to put these together. All again, they'll tell us late 1800s, early 1900s for most of these. Some of them will stretch a little further back in time because Philadelphia allows for it in the narrative. Again, this is really illustrating why you have a building like this when these are the people of the time. Right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. They seem so old and well established. Doesn't seem like a relatively young civilization, let's say. The Betts Building, built in 1892, demolished in 1926. So this poor building here saw 34 years. I'm older than this building was. Does this look like it was a new building? This is an early time period too, 1892, and they're providing us with a construction photo from 1892. They probably shouldn't have. This looks ridiculous to me. Anyway, the Bingham House. One of so many buildings in old Philadelphia. I'd just like to remind you, if you're enjoying these videos, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. If you have a location in mind that you'd like me to take a look at, throw it in the comments section, or you're welcome to email me with more information on a specific location that I can dive into. So happy to do a bit of research and have some viewer-led research go on. This is the Broad Street Station, train station. Absolute absurdity for us to think that they were throwing this up in that very early Industrial Revolution time. Rather, what I think we're looking at, and what I suggest we're looking at, are the remains of an older civilization that was inherited and repurposed. There's the Broad Street Station from behind. And this magnificent structure was opened in 1881, and it was closed in 1952, demolished the subsequent year, 1953. Shame on you for tearing this down. The Bullitt Building, built 1887, demolished 1964. I know you're probably starting to understand why so many of these were demolished. You can even see the peaks in behind here, steeper peaks going on. So probably more to this building than meets the eye initially. This would be the gentleman that building is named after, John Christian Bullitt. Very interesting statue. Philadelphia's infrastructure, very old looking, old world looking. Could easily be somewhere in Europe to our conventional eye, with the massive stonework and the heavy iron work. Pretty serious structure for an early time period. The old University Museum. Couldn't find much else on this except for a picture. Bourse building. The circular portholes that we see in so many of these. Interesting depiction postcard I came across from old Philadelphia, reminding me a bit of some of the Cabbage Patch postcards. Mind Unveiled, dug a little deeper into. Very interesting video. Check that one out. I'll put the link in the description. And a tall stone bridge, old world looking. And these are interesting too, part of the canal systems and river systems you see across the realm. The stone walls as a part of the waterworks. So this gets into the old terraformed realm idea that there was much more intention to so much of the infrastructure. And you're probably beginning to see why Philadelphia was such a prize at an early time period. Offered so much in the way of architecture and infrastructure. One of the early setup locations, I think, for the retaking of the of North America. Or the taking, I shouldn't say retaking. YWCA, I believe. YMCA coming up as well. Of course, you're going to do a YWCA with a dome on the corner, as you do in the 1800s. This is the St. James Hotel. Such a large file. I'm not going to go too in detail on most of these. If you're interested in one of these, obviously you can do your own research and dig a little deeper. I'd like to bring you the visuals, and it is a large file, so I try to keep it moving as well. Lulu Temple, we'll see that a little bit later. One of many churches, no doubt scaled back. A lot of financial buildings you'll see as we move forward in Philadelphia. Saying this is the entrance for the Institute of the Blind, and I couldn't find much more on it. Looking, almost Byzantine back here. Maybe not so much up here. Having an interesting look and feel to it, that one. The dental hall. I like the cupola in the middle. And of course a manual training school, looking like a castle in the middle, as you do. The Carrick Theatre, I believe is this one in here. So many of these are so tightly packed together. These multi 5-6 story buildings packed together. We're going to take a look at this one on the outside a little bit later in the video. And all sorts of majesty built for educational purposes, we'll be told. But really, just a repurposing of buildings that were already there, I suggest. The land title building. This is built in the 1800s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I lost count. That's a very, very tall building to be building. Such an early time period. But you're going to see many tall buildings in Philadelphia from the 1800s. And then we have a brick stadium with plenty of arches. Very interesting. Then you have to wonder, okay, what were they using these types of structures for in the old world? I don't think that they had the sports programs like we do. I think a lot of the sports that have been introduced with the New World narrative. And you see this in many locations across North America, where they had these sightseeing vehicles and tours. People seeing the sights of the city. Of course, there would be many, many sights to see. Would have been really an amazing ride. What's the number on that? Alright, part of the university, the Provost's Tower. This is a 4-tower system here. Really looking ridiculously out of place. But spectacular, really. The Union League. It's funny how this is plural. Philadelphia Catholic Cathedrals. Looking like it could have been a government building or a bank, but it was a cathedral apparently. Probably had a pipe organ. Girls' High School, not to be confused with the Boys' High School, which we saw at the beginning and we'll see again. This one's interesting too. This is part of the university. There's those towers we just saw. But this whole section really reminding me of something that you'd see in somewhere like France, or maybe in Central Europe, where everything is just sort of packed together so tightly. And really looking old world, you know. Presbyterian Church. Is that Gothic styling? Having a bit of a almost a sinister look, I guess you could say. But the basement windows as well. So it's an early time period. The College Hall. No shortage of towers and tech. Seen this shaped building come up a lot in my research. Very, very similar styling all over North America, especially that look. An armory, of course. That's a nice look at early 20th century Philadelphia. You can see the city hall there in the background, but the fountain, or the statue, sorry, in the foreground. I do wonder if there's if it was always a statue, but if there was a fountain. But you can see how this all sort of ties together. The layout of the city. Much thought put into the layout of the city. No question. This is a good one to really illustrate what we call the mud flood in this community, where a re-leveling of the ground took place. And you can see basically no trace of these windows here, and then as the street moves down, you start to see more on this level. I love the ornate department stores too. We're going to see a few more of these as well, with the absolutely absurd pipe organ. But let's have another little reminder of the Cabbage Patch Kids. This is an advertisement for SK's food. These and thousands of other babies have been nourished and have grown strong on SK's food. A very happy crowd. Back to some of the bridge work and early infrastructure. This is spectacular. This having that old world cathedral-esque styling built into the ironwork on the bridge. And this, they're probably telling us, is some sort of construction photograph. You can see the blocks in the foreground looking like a big mess. Alright, let's talk about the City Hall for a little bit. A little bit of the history that we're given about it. Designed in the Second Empire style. 1871 to 1901, 30-year time period. So they're giving lots of time for this to go up. Although the tower was completed in 1894. Designed to be the world's tallest building until the Eiffel Tower surpassed it, but it was the world's tallest habitable building, and all the rest of the tall buildings were churches or cathedrals at the time. We're told. It includes 700 rooms, 88 million bricks, thousands of tons of marble and granite. And the last little blurb on the City Hall, I love this one. In the 1950s, the City Council investigated tearing it down and building a new city hall elsewhere, but then they found out that demolishing it would have bankrupted the city. Yeah. Of course, worthy of its own video, and so much to see and talk about with this structure. We'll take a look at the inside and we'll move on. And just soak that in and really understand 1800s. They're building this, not according to our historical narrative. Really incredible stuff. Beautiful. It makes you wonder, all these buildings that you see where we don't have any visuals of the interior. I'm sure that there was all sorts of spectacular interior finish going on with so many of these structures. This is completely on another level, this structure. And they do give us a construction photograph. Really appreciate that. No need to question the narrative because they have a construction photograph provided. Alright, the convention hall. Large structure, massive. Speaking of, the customs house, built between 1932 and 1934. This is a 2-year construction project during the Great Depression. We are told. Why are you building like this during the Great Depression? I guess they're all make-work projects. You get the eagles, all sorts of beautiful, ornate Art Deco styling. Custom house. Let's take a look at the inside. Make-work project, guys. We're in a Great Depression. Got to get in there and have some black granite columns. That's what it calls for on the plans. The architect drew it up. Look how perfect the floor is here. Perfect. Incredible. Close-up of the top of these columns. 1932 to 1934. Really? This is the type of work they were pulling off 90 years ago? Now we can't even understand how they built it? What happened? What did we lose? We definitely had a great war in between. What did we really lose during World War II? What didn't we lose during World War II? The old cyclorama. This is like supposedly early days of movies. The Drake Hotel, built not long before the Customs House. Looking really interesting, shape and size of it. And let's take a closer look, just to get a feel for the upper reaches, again, of this structure. And again, why are you building the top of the building where you're not going to see, really, all that often, especially from the street level. This is what's going on near the top of this building. And then at the bottom you have this type of impeccable ornamentation. Beautiful. And a little shot of the interior for you, just so in case you haven't seen enough columns yet. So many. Oh, the Drexel building. Early time period, looking like it's been there a long time. Here's a shot of the interior, the Drexel Institute. Amazing. And this would be the this portion right here. Close up. Front entry facade. In case you thought it was a little plain from far. I wish it was a higher resolution, but ornamentation and detail is absolutely off the charts. Beautiful theater, Empire Theater. Interesting looking hospital, for sure. This is the Evening Bulletin building, or the Evening Bull, as it has been called. They have a close-up of the tower. Beautiful tech-looking situation there. And they tore this puppy down. I don't have the decade, but it's gone. And this is the front entry area of that corner. Certainly worth a closer look, I would say. Just massive scale and size. You can see some sort of statue there. There's another shot of the exhibition, one of the exhibition buildings. You can see glass, see all the panes of glass. So to say that these things were temporarily built is absolutely absurd. The amount of work that supposedly was put in for a 6-month fair makes no sense. That's why I suggest researching the World's Fairs, because the timeline and the reasoning make no sense. Really make no sense whatsoever. This is another one of the buildings from the fair. Supposedly was on display at the fair. This, the hand of Lady Liberty, I suppose. Alright, we have the Fidelity Bank. Would love to see more of this entryway here. I looked, but I couldn't really find. What I did find was another Fidelity entryway, which is strange. This is another Fidelity building. I often wonder about these very narrow buildings. You have to think that they were stacked right next to each other, so many of these. This is the Fidelity Trust building. This is the other one I found. Look at that structure. Whew. And this is the front entry of that building. These people look miniature, don't they, compared to what we're looking at here. The statues. This looking like an afterthought. Very plain looking writing compared to the rest of the building. You'd think they would at least put a little bit of a flair on some of the font of that sign. You're going to have these 4 figures above a sign like that, and then these 2 figures below. Come on. I don't think so. Repurposed. Apparently Fidelity Mutual. You can read that. Pause and read if you like. This is the same entryway, modern day. Very interesting looking front entry with all these figurines on it. The Franklin Building. We're going to take a closer look at this little bit right here. They call them the Franklin Strongmen. This reminded me of something I've seen in Dresden. But this is in Philadelphia. The city of brotherly love. And this is what the Franklin Building looks like today. Right here, where all these vehicles are parked. Yeah, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Brings new meaning. There's that Provost Towers again. The temple. Gimbals. Let's see here, Gimbals Department Store. This structure obviously repurposed for the purposes of retail. In this Gimbals photo, let's take a look at let's take a closer look at the street scene. Really interesting. Again, not feeling like there's heavy construction going on anywhere. It almost feels like something out of Westworld or The Matrix. Everyone was just sort of, you could pause it at any second you want. These buildings must have been, awe-inspiring. They sure are awe-inspiring to me. Here we have the Girard Trust, very high-resolution photograph that I think we can take a look in. A little closer again, feeling minuscule compared to the architecture, the people, feeling very minuscule. Of course, if you're from the area, like I say, and you have a story, I love stories. Add your story to the comment section. What do you know about Philadelphia? What kind of experience did you have there, or have you heard about? And they're letting you know here that you can guarantee trust and safe deposit with them because they've got tech on their roof. The Hammerstein Opera House. Let's look at the inside. Ooh, ah, old world. Ooh, ah, very difficult to achieve. Look at this. We have statues built into the column work again. We have paintings on the ceiling. You can see here just a hint of it. This is in Philadelphia. Who's doing these ceiling paintings in Philadelphia? Was it Michelangelo reincarnated? They don't tell us. They don't talk about this. Right, this is like a dirty little secret. They don't want us to know about the architecture because it gives away the existence of the old world. I saw this one in the intro, the Harrison building. Interesting looking and shaped building. Front entry, very ornate. My guess is you have 2 statues removed from here. Not much of a guess, that's pretty obvious. Why would you remove them? This is the Hazeltine building. One of many that seem to look like this. You get to a point in Philadelphia where there's just so much. But we do have to talk about this one. This is the Boys High School, or Central High School, I mentioned earlier. I've featured this in my video on high schools, the American High School. If you haven't seen that one, please do check it out. Maybe you'll see the high school you went to, or your parents went to. All old world structures, of course. And just to get a sense of the magnitude of this building, let's look at the corner a little closer. So you have the gated off area on the edge of the building. No doubt that there's grates down here and this goes down below. But just take a look at the vastness and size of the blockwork here. And then ask yourself, why on earth would you build a high school in such a manner? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Repurposed buildings. This is the back side of the high school. There you can see the dome, possibly an observatory, that dome. There's that gate again. Oh, here we have another one of those World's Fair buildings that aren't really worth looking at because they were built temporarily, so we can't really take them seriously as structures. Right, we're fools for even considering that, for even looking at them. It doesn't matter if this is temporary or not, whatever that means. Look at this building, 1876, built for 6-month fair. Horticultural Hall, right. This is for the exhibition as well. I think this is the beginning inside of the Fine Art Museum, which we will have a quick look at. This is some of the interior that you're likely to see. Again, a stereoscopic image, so you should be able to make that 3D if you have the ability to do that. The Hotel Adelphia, massive structure, early time period. There's a quick. Oh, this is a hotel. This is the Belgravia. Oh, now I'm getting lost in hotels. Ah, yeah. Well, you'll see why. Let me go back here. This is a Belgravia hotel. I couldn't find an old photo of this. Obviously still standing, I think, depending on how recent the photo is. This is actually giving us a good idea of what a lot of these black and white structures may have looked like in a colorized modern photo. Yeah, beautiful, right? Hotel Stenton. We're going to take a closer look at this portion right here. Very unique, interesting looking corner to the building. Obviously you have the lower grates. You can see this little box area here looking like maybe after the fact was boxed in. But very interesting corner. And you see this styling repeat itself throughout the old world architecture. Hotel Stenton. Hotel Walton, the big one here. I have the arrow here just to highlight this little guy here with the 2 domes. I don't think I found this anywhere else in my research. And that's the thing. I'm bringing you over 200 photos here, probably just under that with the number of buildings. And there's all sorts of structures like this one that I just can't find any visual evidence for. So you're just getting a taste, really, of what was there. This is the Hotel Walton I just showed you, the interior. All these gentlemen with their black top hats. And I did have a comment saying, how do you know they're wearing dark clothes? Or how do you know they're not all just different colors and the black and white photo just picks up black? Well, it looks like shades of gray to me for sure. These look like a very dark color, close to black, if not black, for most of these individuals. No doubt the world was in black and white, even though all the architecture was in color. The consciousness was in black and white, let's say. Not anymore. There's the Walton again. You see that one again down there. You can also see a little dome on the corner here, so no shortage of it everywhere. Pretty neat looking structure, for sure. The YMCA, very odd looking building. Couldn't find a whole lot on this. If you know anything about this building, please put it in the comments. Look, you see the horse and buggy here. This looking and feeling quite modern. So that not really fitting, but you have the streetcar there as well. So this was an obscure building to find anything on. So like I said, if you know anything, please help out. And this they're calling the home for the incurables, or incurably insane, probably something like that. And just to quickly add to my file, we have the Jewish Foster Home and Orphan Asylum. And apparently this is also an old asylum, so, for what it's worth. So this would be the Jane building, and I think they're saying that this depiction is supposed to be from 1851. Don't have much other information on it. 1851, and how many stories do we have? And we have circular windows. Not fitting what we'd expect for the time, that's for sure. The old Wanamaker, Philadelphia store. We're going to see a bit more on this. There's a couple different versions. Methodist home for the aged. Yeah, you got to put old people somewhere. May as well make it look and feel old. All right. So the Lucas building. So we talked about that earlier. Obviously not adjacent to the other structure, the theater we saw earlier on in the video. I don't know if we got some postcard trickery or what's going on there, or if this was actually built next to it. Built in 1889, this interesting looking structure. Focusing here again on this section, we have this rounded dome, and you have this more of a cone-shaped dome. And in a bit of a more modern photograph with close-up of that area is showing us what they did to this part of the building. So the rounded dome is gone, and the conical dome is gone as well. Let's go back, and then back to here, and then you get a sense of the type of chicanery that goes on to hide the evidence of the old one. Lyric theater, columns, elevated columns. There it is, modern day. Something to really feast your eyes on. If you were walking by, you would stop and you would tilt your head and you would be staring at this. I know I would be. But once you have the eyes to see the old world, it's like we've gone from black and white to color. I really feel like this is the Majestic. Really feel like now everything's been colorized, and before it was black and white. And this would be one of the rooms, the Majestic Lounge, they say. I'm not sure if this is carpet. Bit of almost a shine to it, it's hard to say. There's the classic fireplace, energy resonators. These two devices here in front having to do with the whole apparatus as it used as a heating device is what it's starting to look like as the research develops on that. The Mammoth Rink. Okay. Masonic Hall 1, I believe, 1853. 1859, different Masonic Hall, I suppose. Yet another Masonic Hall, we're told. And then we have an interior for one of these. I'm not sure which one. I'm guessing maybe it's supposed to be this one. This is an interior look at one of the rooms in there. Really amazingly ornate. And of course we come to the Masonic Temple that stands still to this day. Now, to their credit, we are told that this took 5 years to build, was completed in 1873, which is the completion of the exterior, but then they allow for another 15 years till 1887. because the interior looks like this. So somebody got in there and took their eraser out and adjusted the historical narrative to account for some of this interior splendor that we're seeing and that we're allowed to see. I'm sure there's rooms in there that we can't even get into and have a look at. How's that for conspiracy theorists? There's the front entry. Had to make it that ornate, didn't they? In the late 1860s, 1870s. Come on. Really? We're to believe this nonsense? Oh man, if you believe that, I don't know. I don't know what I can do for you. Alright, another structure. I don't even have a name for this one. Looking amazing though. The Methodists had their own orphanage because of the high amount of orphans that existed in the 1800s. It was, of course, an old fiction, and yeah, orphan trains were doing their thing of just so many orphans. Manufacturers Club. Apparently, this is the old Manufacturers Club. I love these very interesting, like very vertical, narrow-looking buildings in Philadelphia. All right, there's the Museum of Fine Art that I had mentioned earlier. I chose this pic because you can see how all of this is sort of built on the water. You know, you'd have to reroute the water to build these structures. These are massive undertakings. If we're to try to fit them into the given historical narrative. Good place to store your cash. Okay, let's look closer at this one. Our Lady of Mercy, looking very ornate and detailed. And we have a more recent photo of it, and you can see that the left tower, looking at it, has been removed. This part of it. Let's go back to here. Chopped off right here. So this tower here has been cut off at this point right here. Also difficult to tell what the top of that one looks like. Well, it could be the same as what it used to be. The Park Theater, kind of hazy. I have some of the interior that's not so hazy. This is the beautifully finished Park Theater. You can see the columns up here and the coffering in the ceiling with the rosettes. The architecture of the old world repeats itself. There's the Park Theater, a little bit clearer in postcard form. Penn National, 1899. A bit plain and simple looking compared to what we've seen in this presentation. But Penn Mutual, showing a little bit more of flair for us. Penn Mutual. The people down here again looking very small. Nice crisp photo. The Academy of Fine Arts. And it itself is a piece of fine art. This building, obviously. Beautiful. Again, large entryway. People's Trust. For you must gain the people's trust. You must. We saw the Drexel earlier as well. Tried not to repeat too much in this one because there's so much to look at. Another one of the buildings from the World's Fair. Temporary building. Not really worth the conversation because it's temporary. Supposedly an aerial, this looks like a photograph, isn't it? From the late 1880s? Is this supposed to be from a balloon? Look how built out this is. Incredible. Incredible. Not exactly sure what this portion is, but I'm sure I featured it in here. Feels otherworldly, doesn't it? Another look at the Museum of Fine Art. No shortage of domes buildings with domes on the corner. Look at all the streetcars in this one. And then you have a horse and carriage. You've had looks like a donkey pulling a cart with some barrels. And then you can see shoulder to shoulder buildings. Don't have a name for this one. You can see though how beautiful these houses are. This is from 1886, we're told. A drawing of the Union Insurance Company. We're getting close to the end of the file. It's a very large file. So if you're still with me, thanks for being here. I appreciate you checking out my videos and commenting when you do. So much to see in the old world. Philadelphia, I've been sort of stalling on making this Philadelphia video for a while because I knew it was going to be large. I was going to have to take a big bite off of what I found in the architect. I could probably keep searching. I probably could have found another 100 photos, to be honest with you. So I had to cut it off at some point. There's the Lulu Temple. Saw that earlier. Kind of out of place too, right? What the hell is that doing there? Strange. The Drexel House. And many of these buildings, obviously, you could expand into a single video and really dissect the story and the visuals that remain of some of these places. But that's not for this video. This video is really a collection for you, so you can get a sense of what Philadelphia once was. This is interesting too. Looking and feeling massive. I thought I'd throw it in there. Railroad station. Not sure if this is this structure. I don't think so. This is supposedly the post. They call it the new post office, but it's old, obviously. So I'm not actually sure what this one is. If anybody knows, let me know. I hope it's Philadelphia. Sometimes I get one or two from the wrong location. That happens when you're collecting all these visuals. Here's an old prison. Trying to make it look more basic than it was, for sure. The way they've penciled in the brickwork here, trying to make it look a bit more rudimentary, I think, with the drawing. This is some sort of school as well, a high school. Very early depiction of the stock exchange. You could almost say that this is ancient Rome if you drew in some togas here. Changed a little bit of the vehicle stylings here with the horses. You could probably easily pass that off for ancient Rome. Provident Life and Trust. This is the addition, apparently. 2-year addition that they built at that time period, we're told. Of course, they had a basement in the 2-year addition. Interesting looking buildings, just the way that they're definitely feeling fictional to our conventional viewpoint, let's say. A lot going on there. The reading terminal. So yet another train station. And then this is a very interesting corner as well. Not sure what that is. Here's a closer look at that corner. Just so you get a sense of the detail here. When I show you this photo and it looks all hazy, and you're kind of getting an overview, and then when we get in a little closer, you can actually really get a sense for how elaborate the detail was on these types of structures. And they'll say that they built this for the train station, and I would say sure, they built it for a train station, but an old world city. And the timelines are all way off, as far as I'm concerned. The real estate trust. Trust us with your real estate. We're going to take your real estate. We're going to make it our own. They're still doing that, aren't they? This is also the real estate trust. This is strange. So you're kind of cut off right here in this version of this postcard. What does that tell you? If this building, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't look like it existed like this. It looks like it's been erased out, and it should actually look like this. So that tells me that we're seeing all sorts of Photoshop, early Photoshop going on with these early postcards. Now, is that to say that all the buildings are fake too? I don't think so. No, I think there's just sort of all sorts of games that are being played with this historical narrative, and they're constantly playing catch up to make it all fit. This is the record building, and I don't know, I couldn't really get over how amazingly ornate the top of this building is. Let's see if I have a better visual. Something similar going on here, where it's cut off there, and then we have more building there. So I don't know, maybe it was I don't know, something funny going on there. I'm getting a bit of a sense of the detail here. This one may be providing us with a bit more, even down here. Would you get a look? You're seeing a lot of this really over the top detailing in Philadelphia. The record building. Beautiful. I love that one. One of my favorites, actually. One of my all-time favorites. Ridgeway building. The Ritz-Carlton. No shortage of hotels, old world hotels in Philadelphia. Horse and buggy, some automobiles, and this is the Rittenhouse Plaza, very tall building. Robert Morris building, another example, so you can kind of tell it's a little bit detailed here, but we have a modern day shot of the front entry, just to give you an idea of how ornate it really is. Very interesting, these faces popping out too. Do you have to wonder if those are part of the original, or oh yeah, what's going on there? It's interesting though. Athletic club, as you do. Build it in such a way. Interesting too, these columns coming down, chimney columns, whatever. That might be, you get the feeling that there was a much larger building there before. Shanks building. What do you think of Philadelphia? Huh. Now, I haven't really tackled Chicago or New York, because as I've said, that would be a serious undertaking. But Philadelphia's right in there too. Scottish Rite. You get the feeling something's been scaled down about this, especially at this time period. They're giving us a construction photo. This is what I found that's supposedly passing as a construction photo for that building. So, yeah. Snellenberg department store. One of those fancy department stores that you see in the old world cities. Boston has a beautiful department store as well. Check that video out. I did Boston as well a while back. St. Peter's and St. Paul's Cathedral. The Carnell Hall. Carnell and Conwell Hall at Temple. Anyone ever been to Temple University? Anyone have any stories they can add to the video? I mean, this is definitely looking like it's much older than they'll tell us. Temple. It was a temple, the Baptist temple, they're saying. Interesting, these parts here, obviously long gone. I think this is also a part of the temple. Correct me if I'm wrong, any of those of you that are local and know, let me know. And yet another portion of I don't know how we can walk around these cities now and not see the old world, guys. Once you see it, you're probably experiencing a state of awe and wonder. You're probably picking up on it now. You've got the spidey sense for it. And if you're not there yet, and you don't subscribe to this whole old world theory, and you think it's absolutely ridiculous, well, I don't know what to tell you. Something doesn't add up about the historical narrative, and there's enough of us looking at it and pointing it out now. I think that it's certainly worth a look. I think it's worth considering. But you can always appreciate the buildings for what they are, visually. The Tower Hall. First Baptist Church. Beautiful. The Union League Club, we saw this in postcard form earlier, but then I found a very crisp, clear version for you. Teched out up top. This completely looking like having the purpose of some sort of tech, harnessing through the metal, the energy of the ether, the old world system, and a part of our past that has been completely hidden from us, I suggest. This is strange, the Upper Ferry Bridge. I found this very strange when I found it. I don't know how old it's supposed to be. It looks like they're depicting it from a very early time period. It's looking almost futuristic. Had a strange feel to it. The Walton, again, I think we saw this one earlier. Sometimes I lose track. There used to be a cone or dome on the corner there, and those domes look like they're gone at this point too. Okay, so this is John Wanamaker's new store, apparently. The massive structure. Really, like, huge. Supposedly this is the former one. And let's take a look at some of the interior. This is the one department store with the pipe organ. The epic pipe organ. And then the interior that looks like this. Wanamaker's. Share your stories. If you've ever been in this building, really amazing and completely out of place for what the purpose of this building is supposed to be. Okay, the West End Trust. Yet just another old world building in Philadelphia. A Witherspoon building with some ornate styling. Look at that. Statues. Those look like statues. There's the front entry of the Witherspoon building. Ornate rosettes on the underside of the arch. All sorts of statues and ornamentation. Old world. Screaming at you. Old world. Again, Witherspoon building from a different angle. And unfortunately, we don't get a good look at the statues up here. See the one on top? That's the statue row up there. Alright. The Western Saving Fund. And the YMCA, one of three I guess we've seen in this presentation. This is the final photograph in my file. Alright, so let me know what you thought of Philadelphia. A long video, and much to offer in the way of the old world. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.